the after-hours code in his messages, the night the gallery lights chose 4:13. At 9:06 p.m. my phone flashed the kind of blue that makes you put down whatever is in your hand and pretend you aren't already reading. A message sat on Rowan's side of our shared thread, a thing you get when two people decide convenience is just another word for trust, a screenshot from a keypad app I didn't recognize. Beneath the keypad, a caption he hadn't meant to send me. Use the side door off Caledonia. Code 4137. Alarm bypassed for 20 minutes. A minute later, the three dots danced, stopped, and never returned. I stood in the kitchen with my palm pressed to the counter like wood could brief me on what to do next. There was a cinnamon thing warming in the oven, not a recipe, a promise I liked to make to our apartment before one of us broke it. The place had the clean quiet it wears when it isn't ready to choose a side. Rowan had left at 8 with the jacket that flatters him even when the mirror has better ideas. The kiss you give a life you expect to stay exactly where you left it. Wrap toast, he'd said, 2 words that dress celebration in admin, and then notes at the gallery, quick, don't wait. I wiped a spill that didn't exist and let the phone unlock my feet. The Caledonia Gallery sits at the end of a block that learned to be important after people began painting it. Through the windows, I could see a few late sculptures minding their business. The street outside smelled like clean rain pretending to be useful. A security light over the side door had the patience of a lamppost that knows better. The keypad blinked as if it had heard rumors about me. I typed 4137, felt the magnet loosen, and stepped into a silence that picked its own temperature. After-hours galleries don't sound like normal rooms. The air has a polite thickness, a suggestion you should speak to the eyes in the wall, not the people in it. Spotlights practice their attention across a series of large photographs Rowan had been curating for months. The colors looked like instructions. On a low plinth near the window sat a tray with a bottle of sparkling water, a glass sweating the way bodies do when they aren't decided yet, and a linen napkin folded into something more precise than I enjoy. I heard a laugh from the back, then a hush with the shape of my name in it, even though it didn't try to say it. Rowan came around the corner with his jacket off, and his shirt sleeves rolled to a kind of argument. Behind him, Nico followed, the artist, the sound of trouble when you say it in a room you can't afford. Nico's mouth held that sideways smile cameras misquote. His wrist looked like a promise someone else might keep. He touched Rowan's shoulder as if the point of contact were a sentence that had already learned its verbs. Rowan stopped when he saw me. There's a half-second at the beginning of surprise where the truth shows up without putting its coat on. I saw that half-second, then the practiced record he prefers when the night wants to invoice both of us. Eli, he said, my name with the softness of a receipt. The door and I have a relationship now, I said, because jokes keep panic on a leash. You introduced us with numbers. Nico's mouth snapped to neutral like he'd been taught. We were just checking lighting temperatures, he said, which is the sort of sentence rooms tell themselves when they want to pretend mercy is their idea. Not here, Rowan said. He glanced at the street as if glass had ears. He nodded toward the stairwell. The roof, there's air up there. The stairwell smelled like concrete and the sort of paint that believes in itself. The roof had 3 low vents, a palette of sky the color of a second chance, and a view of Caledonia Street rehearsing its reflections. Rowan leaned on the rail the way people do when they need it to keep them from agreeing too soon. Nico stayed 2 paces back, his hands in his pockets, his mouth believing in quiet. I lied when I left, Rowan said. He kept his voice low, the after-hours setting. Rap happened. People kissed cheeks because they wanted to go home. I told myself I needed 30 minutes to look at his work without a crowd and find out if what I liked about it was in the room or in me. Which part of you? I asked, not unkind, because kindness that late can be the same as fear. The part that wants to be wanted for not being obvious, he said. He nodded toward Nico without looking. He listens to the wrong things beautifully. Are you sleeping with him? The question is a cliff, and there isn't a scenic route. You count to 2 and use your mouth like an adult. Not yet, Rowan said, quick and clean. Then lower, the honesty that knows exactly which muscle to bruise. I brought my mouth. Nico didn't flinch or perform. He let the city behind him do the posture work. There was something unspectacular and useful about the way he stood, the way good frames pretend to disappear. I looked at him and saw a man who could be evidence or furniture depending on what I chose to do next. I looked at Rowan and saw the version of him that shows up when a room suggests he try on a different name for a while. You love the kind of wanting that proves something kindness can't, I said. I didn't make it cruel. Cruelty would have made it easier. You treat intimacy like a sport and honesty like off-season training. That's uncharitable and true, Rowan said. He smiled and then didn't. You like coaching. I like winning, I said. Not at you with you. Nico took a careful step forward, enough to let the light pick him up, not enough to pretend he had the right to stand closer. I'll go downstairs, he said. You can lock up when you're done. You stay, I said, and shook my head when both of them looked at me. I need to say this with the room listening, otherwise it becomes theater. I stepped close enough that Rowan's breath started to behave like it belonged to a single organism with mine. He smelled like clean sweat and a mouth that had been teaching itself a new grammar. The city at our backs pretended not to notice. I touched 2 fingers to the place at his wrist where guys hide their pulses and felt the way a truth insists. His eyes closed and opened like we were a kind of light. I want you where we live, I said. I want the unedited version. I want you enough that this roof and this night and his smile look like set dressing and not plot. I want you to come home and make me convince you again we didn't waste our best heat on the wrong staircase. Nico exhaled softly, not approval, just oxygen. Rowan's mouth did a tiny ruin of a smile and then stopped itself like it remembered the cost. Tell me to leave, he said. Or tell me to stay with you here a minute longer. Or tell me what you plan to do to me if I try to turn this into a metaphor. You don't get to be rescued by poetry, I said. I moved my thumb over the thin skin where his pulse said yes by accident. You get my mouth or the door. Pick. He stepped into me the smallest distance necessary to be called honest. He didn't take his eyes off mine. I let my hand find the back of his neck and pull him to me slowly, the way you take something fragile down from a high shelf. The kiss didn't start with hunger. Relief arrived first and then passed the plate. The edge of the rail pressed a suggestion into his lower back he would remember later in the shower. My mouth told him he wasn't allowed to think. He obeyed with the kind of intelligence you can't teach. We did not undress each other. We did not ruin anything the wind would have to explain. We borrowed heat and returned it carefully. He made that small sound he makes when tenderness surprises him and made it again when I chased it. Nico stood where he was and let the city do the spectator work. When I let Rowan up for air, his eyes took a second to agree with the sky. Come home, I said. We will say the long version in daylight. He nodded and closed his eyes and opened them. Yes written 3 times. Nico stepped back toward the stairwell with the posture of a man who prefers to leave a room well. He met my gaze for exactly the length decency requires. If it helps, I wanted to hear the version of him that doesn't audition, he said. You make that happen. I can't do anything with the draft. You could, I said, but you won't. He inclined his head, agreement, apology, both, and disappeared down the stairs. On the way out, we passed his photographs again. Rowan's hand found my wrist in a way that asked permission without pretending to be gentle. The hallway closed behind us like a mouth that had decided to keep someone else's secret. In the street, the air smelled like an argument that had learned to be quiet. He didn't touch me walking home because touching would have asked us to choose too early. At the door, the key remembered us without asking for small talk. The cinnamon thing had waited for us with unreasonable loyalty. We ate with our fingers because forks would have made everything feel like a plan. He watched my mouth like he was taking notes for later. I slid my palm up under his shirt to the place where his body keeps its best arguments. He turned into me with that unteachable gratitude that makes ordinary furniture feel like a conspiracy. We kissed again in the kind of slow that behaves like ethics. I stopped when I needed to. He pressed his forehead to mine and said my name as if it had entered a new register. The apartment pretended not to have opinions. In bed we were careful, which is an unsexy word until you do it right. I knew where his shoulder hides when it wants to avoid confessing. I knew how to coax it. He knew where to put his palm on my ribs to make me turn into him without starting a fight we weren't ready to finish. We didn't borrow anything from the night we could not return. There is a tone the body finds when it forgives itself for learning. We chose it. Not explicit, not sanitized. Just two men remembering where they belong, by remembering how each other tastes when they are almost honest. He fell asleep with his mouth against my wrist, and I watched the ceiling learn to stop asking questions. Morning pushed pale light through the blinds as if the day had started practicing landscape painting. Rowan made coffee. I opened the window to give the room a draft to carry our names to the corner and back. I didn't look at the keypad screenshot again. I didn't delete it either. He told me the small facts first, because small facts keep the larger ones upright. The notes ran long. The city felt hungry. The gallery felt like a rehearsal space for lives he wanted to try on. He ran out of script. The rest came from his mouth without choreography. He said he wanted to be wanted the way stupid teenagers are wanted when nobody is grading. He said he imagined my mouth on that roof even when he was practicing being the sort of man who makes other men imagine theirs. He said he was sorry like a person who understands sorry is a tool, not a solution. I didn't forgive him over the mugs. Forgiveness is a daylight word you pay for in installments. I told him to put on the coat that does not belong to hotels and walk with me to the canal where water performs Paris and gets away with it. We watched a gull lose an argument with the wind and agree to pretend it had won. I listened to the part of my chest that keeps a separate ledger for hunger and mercy and tried to balance the columns without cheating. He kept his thumb hooked in my pocket like humility. I let him. The next afternoon, I ran into Nico in a lobby that smelled like ambition and lemon. He gave me the nod men give when they have decided furniture is the safest thing to be. He didn't apologize and I didn't deputize. We took the elevator together and watched our faces be rewritten backward by a mirror that didn't understand nuance. It didn't matter. We could read ourselves both ways by then. There are still nights when a passcode rolls its shoulders on my phone and makes a good argument for walking toward the thing I'm supposed to ignore. There are still rooms that write to me in glass and ask me to believe in their mirrors. When that happens, I do what I did the night the gallery lights chose 4:13. I get up. I take my mouth with me. I say the short version in a stairwell if I need to, and the long version in our kitchen if I can. I teach our door, over and over gently, with as many mistakes as it takes, to open from the inside.